Hey everyone, welcome back. So today I want to talk a little bit about waste, temporary fixes, and the actual permanent solution that gets installed. All right. Now we're going to hit on three major things: material use, consumables, and labor. So we can kind of talk about, see what's going to happen when you go to put pricing together and with different things you need to consider. All right, let's talk about materials. Of course, you need to make sure you cover everything in your materials. This is going to be shared across all three aspects of waste, fixes, and permanent solutions. So you need to consider drywall, plywood, concrete, whatever it is your main materials are going to be. And then don't forget, you also need to install them somehow. Nails, screws, bolts, chemical anchors, mechanical anchors, anything and everything that you can think of that the guy out in the field might need in order to put this thing into place. Number two, consumables. Now, when we talk about consumables, we're talking about like cutoff wheels, whether it's in a large saw, small saw blades, things of that nature that are going to be consumed when you are trying to put things in place. And finally, number three, labor. Someone's gonna have to install it. I don't know that anybody has any little leprechauns that come in at night to do these things, or any little elves that, can help them out. So you're gonna have to have forces, your own labor forces, in order to install these things. And that's gonna be the third thing that we talk about here. Okay, first things first, we'll talk about the waste. You have to sit down, you have to think, is this really a temporary fix? Is there really a purpose for us to install these things? A temporary fix serves a purpose. Permanent solution also serves a purpose. But waste sometimes just doesn't. Of course, we're talking about waste, little ends of studs, track, things that we don't need or that got broken. That's all waste. So we need to really consider, does this serve a purpose? If it does, then we move to the next thing, which is it a temporary fix? But when it comes to waste, we all know we need to keep that to a minimum. You need to improve your bottom line and minimize the amount of waste. So make sure that you're not spending time trying to price out something that's not going to serve any purpose, because now you are adding your labor for putting this together and not just the labor of the person that's going to be installing it, and the materials and the consumables. Makes it even worse. Now, a temporary fix is just that. It's temporary. You know it's going to go up. You know it's going to stay up for a bit. And who knows? It might be protecting a pipe so that nobody hits it. Might be protecting some type of electrical equipment so that same thing doesn't get damaged. Because we all know trade damage is one of the leading causes of us having to do rework. As a general contractor, you really want to avoid that, because depending on how bad it is, you might actually have to split that with the subcontractor that's going to come in and fix the work that was damaged, their work that was damaged by another trade. We don't want that. So same thing, material use, the consumables that we're going to use, and the labor to install and to take away or take off. Not de-install, but you know what I mean. We have to take a look at those things, right? Same thing. You need to add labor hours for you putting this pricing together to submit it. Hopefully it's billable, if it's part of a change order, because you said, hey, maybe we want to protect this. Now, you also have to keep in mind, as a GC, it might just benefit you to spend that extra little bit of money in order to protect something. Well, let's say you got some really fancy marble installed on the wall. Do you really want that to get scratched or chipped or broken? Of course not. Let's say it's going to take $2,500 to cover it all up, right? Make some type of framework or something in order to protect it if it's on the wall, or if it's on the floor. Obviously, you want to maybe even put down some plywood panels. I don't know. But the point is, in the long run, not only would that save money, because if it gets broken, if it's installed correctly and it gets damaged, it gets broken, that subcontractor obviously is going to want some type of compensation in order for them to come and fix it or put in a new product. But let's say some really fancy schmancy stuff that's on the wall gets damaged. Is it imported? Now you're going to have time to get that here. Plus, obviously, it's going to cost again in order for you to purchase those products. So now you're out time and money, especially bad if your project has liquidated damages. That timeline might affect your end date. And in which case, now here we are. Had you done it the first time in order to protect it, have a temporary fix up, you wouldn't be in much of a hole. I think that's a very well invested $2,500. All right, lastly, here it is, the permanent solution, which really most of the time, actually, it's whatever was spec'd out, whatever the original work was that gets put in. And like in the previous example, that marble goes up and you leave it alone. That subcontractor will walk away saying, here you go. And you've, probably like sign off on it. You've accepted it. We installed it per spec, whatever, and it's up. Now, there's going to be times when you're going to have change orders. That change order is going to require you to change something, maybe even put something extra up, hang something, put some extra framing in the wall, maybe add some tile to a wall if they extend, one of the walls or something. But thing is, with the permanent solution, you always want to do that. It's something that's billable. It serves a purpose. Obviously, it's going to be permanently installed. That, of course, out of all these three things, is the best thing that you can do, and more than likely is going to be the most profitable thing you can do, even with the temporary fix, because you have to come back to it. The permanent solution, or whatever the final thing is, you're not coming back. It's up, it's done. Slap it, paint it, you're done. Walk away, get paid. I want to show you guys some example, or a example of what I consider the temporary fix that actually is almost like waste that I found actually around my neighborhood. I'm sure you guys have seen this before, where there's trees when you're walking on the sidewalk, sometimes some of the panels are lifted. Now, according to the ADA, I believe you get 3/4 of an inch. That is the maximum difference in elevation between two things that you can have for someone to walk safely. Now, in a public space, this is very, very important to make sure people, don't fall and get hurt, which is very important, but also as a city, you're mitigating all the liabilities, or as many liabilities as possible, especially if you know that they exist. And taking a look at the following pictures, we're going to see exactly what I mean. Lifted panels. Now, in some of these, you'll see, or actually in this one example, you will see that there is a tree right next to the sidewalk. And obviously the root from that tree is causing the sidewalk panel to lift. Now, the city has come by and they put these temporary fixes in, which is just pretty much just cement. And they put that pretty much make that little cement ramp, but usually without roughening the surface, without cleaning it, other than, like with the brush, just brush clean it. There's no glue put on it to try to make it stick, and there's no type of reinforcement in it. It's just literally concrete. Even some fibrous material in it would probably work to strengthen that, and so it stays in place. But as you can see, none of that was done. So you've got these guys coming out here from Public Works, to come here, take a look at it, kind of figure out what they need. They mix up their cement, put it on there, and now, let's say that takes you about 30 minutes. It takes the guys 30 minutes, spread it out, whatever. But now, and I've seen this with my own eyes because I was walking my dog one day when I saw this happen. The guy stands around for like an hour, maybe even 2 hours. I did see in one occasion the guy was standing around in 2 hours for it to set and harden up pretty much almost to full cure. And what are they doing? Just to make sure no one steps in it or on it, and nobody comes and tries to put their initials in it. So now you're out 3 hours, let's say about 3 hours for them actually doing the work. But of course, when they're in the yard, they get there in the morning, they got to make sure they get all the stuff on their truck. Now you're looking at half a day at the minimum to do like one. Now in one of the pictures there, you'll see there's another area just ahead of it where they actually grinded down the sidewalk. Now that's a bit more of a permanent solution if you don't have such a large gap where the elevation change is all that big. Now if you're at like 3/4 of an inch or 1 inch you know that's actually quite a bit. And to grind that down is going to take a lot of time, and you're really, really thinning out that piece of concrete. So as we know, permanent solution, take the panels up, more than likely remove the tree, or maybe replace it with more of a young sapling, obviously a younger tree, smaller trunk, the roots haven't taken yet, and replace those 2 panels. But of course, when we're taking a look at the cost effectiveness of both, it's probably for the city, for the time being, to send someone out like that for the half a day to put this stuff down and then come back, because as you know, I'm guessing between the materials, the guy coming out to do it, and the labor burden, things like that, probably about $1,500 to $2,000 each location. Whereas coming in to take the panels out, pour new concrete, the whole thing with a tree, you're probably looking closer to about 10 grand, maybe even 15, depending on how the city contracts are. Of course, that's a huge difference. But the difference is also with a more streamlined, getting a contractor to come out with all the proper equipment and the staff to come out and do multiple of these, say in a neighborhood, you can probably get away maybe, about 15, maybe 30 grand. But then they could do like almost an entire neighborhood within 2 days. I've seen how quickly those guys work. Heck, they can destroy, the corner and put in more of the ADA, the ramp with the truncated domes in it. They do that thing in 2 days. They don't mess around. And that's one of the differences between private work and public work. Yeah, you're getting paid by the hour either way, but one of them isn't all that great about keeping tabs on production. Obviously, you know which one I'm talking about. So as a contractor, we always have to make sure we're looking out for our bottom line. So what are the takeaways here? Between waste, the temporary fix, which hopefully, it actually serves a purpose and protects whatever it is you are trying to do, or either protects or get something done positive. Or just come in and wait and install the permanent solution. We always need to look at the pros and cons. Look at the pricing. Is it worth it to just throw a fix on there for the time being and then wait? Or do we not even spend that money and sometimes we take the risk of nothing happening so we can just put up the final product and walk away. Like I said, those are some of the pros and cons that we need to weigh here. Also, some of these might actually be parts of change orders. Is it billable? Then it might even be worth it. Although some small fixes, temporary fixes, are almost like not worth the paperwork for you to do and actually get an official change order. Sometimes even the owner, or if there's a construction manager, will tell you, you know what, let's take care of this. Don't worry about writing up the paperwork, the small change order for this. We'll catch you on the next one. Write it down, put it on there. Let me know how much it is so that when you send your next billing or when you write up the next change order, you can just verbally say, hey, don't forget, the little bit in here is from that over there. And they'll be perfectly fine. They say, yes, you're right. I'll take care of you. Don't worry about it. And that's one of the relationships that really helps out between the general contractor and owner's representatives or the owner themselves. And it really helps the relationship, like I said, because as we know, in construction, a lot of it has to do with the relationship. That if you do a very good job and you treat a customer fairly and right, and you take care of some things, they're just going to call you back and you will have guaranteed work for a good while. And one more thing I didn't quite touch on here. Sometimes you can actually have this work integrated into the current work that you're doing if it has this, or if it is pretty much the same thing you're doing. Let's say you guys are out there drywalling and taping and finishing, and hey, like I said, there's a pipe or something they want to get, banged up or anything that's already in the wall, but you just haven't quite got the access panel or something like that. You can just throw on a piece of drywall on there for the time being, and then when the tapers come back, after the plumber does his thing, the tapers can kind of come back if they're already getting to the end of it. The plumber's pretty quick with what they were going to do anyways. Then they can come in and install their stuff. And as the drywallers and tapers are finishing, they just kind of come back. And if you can integrate this into the sequence of work that you're already doing, That's even better because you're not calling people back to do things that they weren't or that they were already done doing. So now we've covered the whole thing about waste, temporary fix, and these permanent solutions, or the material that was already going to get installed in the first place. What are your thoughts? What are your experiences? Let me know in the comments or send over an email. Maybe we'll discuss them in a later video. All right. But for now, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.